the idea of doing this came to me at some point in 2022, and the really, really simple format of it uh, has really appealed to me. And we're only 4 days in, but so far I'm already really appreciating um, the format, and obviously the text itself is just, oh, it's just such a great one. And that we have 81 days to just kind of nibble off, one verse at a time, and to also nibble off one more minute of meditation at a time. Something about it feels, it feels there's an easefulness to starting off the year this way, so far for me at least. Um, and the wisdom of this book, I mean, gosh, when did I start studying this book? This particular version was actually given to me by a dear friend, Erin Berthe, who is in this community. She can't always join at this time because she's usually already at work, but um, she must have given that to me in, I think, 2017. And I had come across, we've all come across some of the wisdom from the Dao De Jing. Some of it's just very famous. Some of it's even become a bit, cliche uh, at this point. I'd certainly come across some of it before, but um, I had never really dived into it. And since then, basically, it's become one of my, I'd say my three books that I carry around with me all the time, including Nisargadatta's I Am That. Um, and I'd say the third one that I carry around and I really refer to the most is probably the Yoga Sutras. But the Tao Te Ching has has something that both of those books don't. There's just some way in which the wisdom is expressed that to me is just beautiful and profound, and has this way of sort of arresting me and dropping me into wonder and dropping me into presence as I engage. So that's why we're diving into this in particular. Maybe the most sort of well-known or cliche phrase from the whole book comes from verse 64. So we've got a little time before we get to that, um, but I'll share a little bit of it with you today. But you've probably heard the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, or begins with a single step, or obviously these things can be translated from the original ancient Chinese and lots of different iterations, right? Um, I'll share with you how it's translated by Stephen Mitchell. This is this version that we keep referring to. Um, sorry, I'm going to make it. Okay, here we go. Here's I'll give you a little bit more of that verse 64 quick here, just so you can. Here he says, the journey of 1,000 miles starts from beneath your feet. And starts with a single step is very, there's something really nice and poetic about that. That's lovely. But the way that he's translated it actually gets almost even more to the heart of the wisdom of this, which is, okay, think about any journey you've ever taken. And think about something that's like been a great accomplishment for you, maybe a degree you earned, or some other trial, essentially, that took a long time. Um, it could be really any kind of journey, a healing journey, physical or emotional or mental. Bring one to mind and think, like, where did that start? Then back up, where did that start? Maybe you were sitting at your desk and you just decided, I'm going to look up, I'm going to look up programs, or I'm going to look up a therapist, or whatever it is. Wherever it is that you ended up, grabbing that diploma. It starts right in that first moment. And the idea that the ground is already under my feet, that leads me to that final destination. What that does is it drops us into another way of thinking, into another way of approaching things than the way that I think at least a lot of us approach them most of the time, which is we're very focused on that end result, on that finish line. And of course, we've heard the cliche, it's about enjoying the journey. And that's an aspect as well, of course. But as we find the master, who is the enlightened being that we're all becoming through our meditation practice and through study and contemplation, the master not only enjoys the journey, which I think the master absolutely does, but the master has this capacity to experience the wholeness in the uniqueness. The master doesn't make the mistake that there's one step of that 1,000-mile journey that's actually important or more important. That the moment that the master, when he or she crosses the finish line, is just as much herself as she was on the first step. Another way of putting this, and this is a metaphor Nisargadatta uses a lot, my other teacher, that the mighty tree is already in the acorn. And of course, this is what I went ahead and added into the chat box if you're watching live. This whole section of the verse: prevent trouble before it arises. Put things in order before they exist. The giant pine tree grows from a tiny sprout. The journey of 1,000 miles starts from beneath your feet. And so you see this kind of play of concepts. Don't get tricked by your own mind into thinking that where you are right now isn't sacred, isn't profound, isn't extraordinary, right? And also, don't get tricked into thinking that the moment when you cross the finish line and maybe somebody gives you a diploma or gives you a hug or gives you a glass of champagne, those heightened moments also, don't get too fooled by them either. So that every moment, it's not that every moment is the same. Every moment is very unique, but that every moment that we recognize that in every moment there is this uniqueness that makes it so worth being present for. For those of you who have been participating, or just even if you, oh, hi, a couple people have joined us. That's so nice. You can go back and look at any of these. They're accumulating nice and slowly in there. But verse 2, what we did on Monday of this week, he says, when people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. Right? So that's that idea of, if the finish line, if I just cannot wait for that last moment, I'm going to be missing the sacredness and the profundity and the insights and the growth that happens, that are happening right now. If I'm not going to honor my tree until it's 6 feet tall, then who's going to care for that little sprout that is the tree? So This journey invites us to be present for each extra minute. Tomorrow we're going to meditate for 5 minutes. And you obviously also don't have to stay for all of those. As they get longer, you can absolutely just participate for a bit, or maybe do 20 minutes and then you do your yoga practice or something. I mean, at the end here, we're going to meditate for 81 minutes, and you don't have to do that necessarily if that doesn't feel like what you need. But I will say that in this little gentle beginning part, it feels like our meditations are just, at least for me, it's like this blossoming that I'm really allowing to happen. Each extra minute, it feels like I can like really inhabit that minute. And something that I have learned about myself that happens is, if I am so focused on what's 1,000 miles ahead or years ahead, or if I'm so focused on the results, if, as I often do, if I've kind of fallen off the wagon, I want to go right back to 20, 30-minute meditation, silent meditations, When I do that, what I create for myself is a lot of resistance. And until I kind of could see this, I really kept trying to overcome the resistance with more and more discipline. Well, then if 30 minutes is too much, then meditate for 40, and trying to kind of prove to myself, to prove to myself that I can take 5 steps at once rather than focusing on today's step. When I do that, like I said, it doesn't work very well. I might show up for a little bit and I burn out, right? Or I've got such a sense of, well, in a way, a kind of wise awareness. I'm not ready for step 5 yet. I'm ready for this one. And I, in a sense, I predict my own failure. I feel like an imposter. I feel, and it's so interesting in this culture. I feel like it's like when I rest, if I rest for a couple of days, then I feel like I've got to do 3 days of work in one. And I think that what I'm trying to not just know up here, but to day by day learn in my body through what we're doing here, is that we can do this without creating all of that resistance. We could do that without getting so much in the story in our mind. And that's always what's happening, right? When we think we've got all this catching up to do, when we think that the sacred ground is over there and not where I am, right? We're always in a story. So that's an indication to me that A, this isn't going to work. I need to change strategies. But B, the cause of my suffering is present right here in my stories. Why is it that I think I gotta win anyway? Where did this come? So we can start to kind of investigate that for ourselves when we find ourselves wanting to go against the Tao. I'm just going to speak for a moment about this very short little verse 4 that we just did today. And then I open it up and invite your questions. Gosh, it's just so beautiful. The Tao is like a well, used but never used up. The eternal void. It is like the eternal void filled with infinite possibilities. So this is a super important concept. A similar concept shows up in Buddhism, of course, where we call it emptiness. In yoga, we call it shunyata. That's a Sanskrit word for emptiness. And what it is this concept of a nothingness that is actually, that it contains all possibilities, that is an aspect of reality that is so, so important. And yet it is empty, right? It is hidden. We can't see it. We can't taste it. We can't feel it. And the power of this nothing is something that we will be reminded of again and again and again. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than God. And it says later on, basically, like, the Tao is the beginning and the end of everything. The Tao is in everything. The Tao is present everywhere. There's no escaping the Tao. And even though this nothingness isn't your God, or it isn't your beloved, it isn't that, it gave birth to whatever it is that you love most. It gave birth to sacredness. It made it possible. It made the space for it. And so, yeah, I think just my last little thoughts for today. Just see how often throughout the day you can tap into a sense of the presence of the invisible, and yet all pervading, all powerful, all present. See if you can just take moments to just drop into the nothing and allow it to be little. We're embracing the little. We're honoring the ground right here under our feet. Acknowledge that you won't be able to always see it or taste it or explain it, but that you can touch it. And in fact, you can't not touch it. All right. If anyone has any questions, you can put them into the chat box. And I don't see anything there at the moment. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue this. Oh, great. Some people are typing. That's wonderful. We're just going to continue day by day to unfold one verse at a time, adding 1 minute at a time. And at least for January, my thought is that Wednesdays and Sundays, I'm going to do something like this. Just stay on for a little bit after, maybe speak a little bit about the verses that we've covered in the last couple of days. And then, yeah, again, offer up you know, a little space for you to share about what's going on with you or any questions that you have. Sage says, brilliant. I'm glad I could finally hear the audio today. Yes, I'm so glad, Sage. We were trying to troubleshoot that earlier and you weren't on yet, so I'm so glad to hear that. Needed to hear this. Serendipity. Great. Judy says, I've been very challenged getting in here. Finally figured out how to make the screens, guys. Hopefully I'll have better luck now. Okay, I'm so glad. I know it's new technology. We're all dealing with it. One thing that I've been telling people is also, if you can't do it on like your laptop, try your phone or vice versa. But everyone seems to be starting to figure it out. And it's been helpful for some new folks to find us this way. So thanks for bearing with me as we try something new. Sage doesn't know how she fixed it. Whack-a-mole with my index finger hitting everyone. Yeah, sometimes, you know, I remember growing up, that's what we would call when you had to like hit the VCR, call it applying science. I don't see any more questions or comments coming into the chat at this moment, but we've got all this time to be together over the next couple of months. So I trust that the conversations we need to have will happen. I will just go ahead and say this and plug this now, which is I am also planning on opening up 2 different cohorts of groups to for people that are wanting a little bit more guidance and support for their meditation practice in the new year. One cohort will be for the total beginners, and one cohort will be for more advanced practitioners that are kind of like Judy said, just like having a hard time getting back to the practice. And if the daily Tao isn't enough to kind of get you here and you need a little bit more, I'm going to create a few little kind of small groups or 2 small groups a little later in January. So everyone's kind of really gotten into the flow of the year. So if you think you might need something like that, I'll be getting you guys more information probably next week about that. And oh, good. Judy says this is feeling wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. All right, my friends. Really nice to be ringing in the new year with you this way, and I will see you all tomorrow. And as you know, this will all get posted with the verse and a little audio for you guys to follow along with, and so you can keep contemplating these throughout your day. Much love. Have a wonderful day.